on the GCN Radio Network.
Well, here's Bloomberg's bio on him. Dr. Stephen Pieczenik is a advisor to Telecontinuity Inc. Mr. Pieczenik served as Deputy Assistant Secretary of State and Senior Policy Planner under Secretaries Henry Kissinger, Cyrus Vance, George Shultz, James Baker. Dr. Pieczenik was the Principal International Crisis Manager and Hostage Negotiator under Secretaries Kissinger and Vance. During that time, he developed conflict resolution techniques that were instrumental in saving over 500 hostages. That's just what Bloomberg has to say about him. The London Telegraph talked to the Italian government, and they say that Mr. Pieczenik was also instrumental in the Red Brigade getting rid of the Italian Prime Minister. I'm going to see from Dr. Pieczenik if that's accurate. What they're saying there, he also reportedly was a private individual assassin that worked on overthrowing governments. He, of course, also has co-authored many of the books with Tom Clancy. That's on record. And also is at IMDb, the International Movie Database, as the producer of some of those books into TV and movies. And perhaps later in the second hour today, we'll open the phones up to take your questions, but also talk a little bit about the novels and what went into making them so realistic, and maybe get his view on what Tom Clancy, who I was reading last night that they're working on some new books together, what his views are on this. But I would imagine that he probably won't want to speak for Tom Clancy. Perhaps he can help us get him on the broadcast. I know a year before 9/11, Tom Clancy wrote a book about a passenger jet being flown into the World Trade Center. I wonder if that's one of the books that Pieczenik advised on. I know he's listed as the co-author on quite a few of them, but he joins us. Now, I want to get into what's happening with the economy, what's happening with the dollar, what's happening with the talk of us losing our AAA rating, because Dr. Pieczenik has also done a lot of work in those areas. The war drums being beaten to go after Pakistan now, that's becoming more and more clear. What's happening in Libya. I mean, I want to pick his brain on a lot of subjects, but before we go any further, I called Dr. Pieczenik yesterday to get him back on. I gave him a few days rest after he graciously joined us Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of last week, because the listeners are just demanding it, and it's just amazing insight, obviously. But I preface it with Dr. Pieczenik saying, have you seen this MSNBC article? And I said, no. Well, he emailed it to me, because there have literally been thousands of blogs, hundreds of foreign and domestic newspapers, you name it, that have reported on the Pieczenik interviews here on air. And they've had to admit, well, Madeleine Albright did concur with him a year after he first said it on Alex Jones in 2002 in April, that, yes, they had him frozen, were planning to roll him out at a politically expedient time. I also have two White House sources told me the same thing. Then Teresa Heinz Kerry came out. Then Walter Cronkite, the late Walter Cronkite, came out. Those are all on record, and we break it down in our new video, Proof Bin Laden Death, Another Government Lie. Please get that out to everybody, because on this lie, they're trying to boost his approval ratings, get the domestic police state rollout, the internal checkpoints, the internal passports, the local police openly federalized. That's in CBS News today, to do the grope downs and the slave training and the body scanners at bus stations, train stations, highway checkpoints, the new cybersecurity takeover of all internet devices. The standardization is already in all the cell phones with the new kill code chip, where the president has now announced he will break in, cut off your phone conversations. Smartphones, you're going to get video and text. Regular phones, just text, with government mandatory messages, 9,000 telescreens at town squares, Mall of America, all Walmart locations now getting them. Out of 800, over 400 already have them, saying, don't trust your neighbors, right out of 1984. So their entire agenda is based on re-invoking the lie of the false flag of 9/11. And you notice after the attack, and then now after the supposed killing of bin Laden, we're being told we've got to now give up our rights. There's going to be more attacks. It's going to be worse. There's nukes buried. KSM under torture says, if bin Laden's killed, they're going to nuke us. That came out 2 weeks before. They're really hyping it to get a new false flag ready to really drop the hammer on this soft martial law grid they've put in that they're now starting to warm up and move to the front burner. So Dr. Pieczenik said, have you seen this? And I said, no. And I had forgotten all this information. But they did a hit piece on Dr. Pieczenik, New Life for an Old Rumor, Was bin Laden a Marfanoid? And they go and they talk to the top doctor, Richard Devereaux. They go and talk, who was trained at the same facility that Dr. Pieczenik was. Well, he's Harvard and MIT. Devereaux, the Cornell Medical Center, a New York Presbyterian expert who treats patients with Marfan syndrome, said he doesn't want to talk about it, but yes, bin Laden is a Marfanoid, or someone who has this syndrome, which is very debilitating. And at the point that bin Laden was at, on his deathbed, CBS News confirmed, in Dubai at the American hospital, being visited by the CIA, I guess getting his agreement to play the part from the grave of this boogeyman to now be resurrected again and then killed again. But he confirmed that, yes, he clearly has this syndrome. And that's our article that we have now up on prisonplanet.com and Infowars.com. Top doctor confirms bin Laden had Marfan syndrome. On top of it, he had total failure of the kidneys. That was on record. On the outside that you live maybe 5-6 years with, and this other degenerative disease. And there he is in this squalid cesspit that they told us was a palace, and they confirm no dialysis equipment. Dr. Steve Pieczenik, that's a 5-minute intro. I just wanted to preface everything. What does this signify that they've tried to demonize you so much? As you told me yesterday, the intelligence community creates names like deathers, birthers, just like conspiracy theorists, to put a label on things. Now they have deatherism within hours of my report a week and a half ago on Sunday evening. This has all the telltale signs. What does it signify, even in their own hit piece, having to admit that he had a terminal disease and couldn't be alive today?
Well, what happens in the intelligence community, and you and I expected it, and I'm sure your audience does. Number one, the intelligence community always assumes that we, the American people, are dumber than they are, and the politicians in the White House are really, now I see Tom Donilon and Ben Rhodes are really second-quality politicians who come out of lobbying and local politics in New York. So they have no understanding of you have or the American public. And what happens in the intelligence community, it's kind of a kabuki. Once somebody like me who's been in national security, and again, I'm not a whistleblower, I don't have a top secret clearance, you came forth and your people came forth, and I said, look, this is a lie. The lie doesn't work. Enough of this nonsense and trying to manipulate the American public for the benefit of the political expediency of this president and the former president and the former president, Bush Jr. or Clinton. The issue is very simply, by saying that we are conspirators, number one, they try to delegitimize by putting in a category. That doesn't work anymore. Whether we're conspirators or we're lifers, there was a new term called lifers and then deathers. And when I said to myself, my God, these boys are really reaching, and they're reaching out in desperation, because every time you try to niche our public, the Alex Jones public or the American public or you, Alex, or me, by saying I'm a conspirator, it really doesn't work. And what happens is they expose themselves. As I told you on the first show weeks ago, they're putting themselves out, and I watch where they're shooting, and I know exactly how they're going to come back. And I told you they're going to come back and call us kooky, crazy, alleged conspirator, as you saw in that article, MSNBC. Well, reporters don't have the intelligence or the ability to really spend time on these issues. Most of them are young kids, or most of them are using blogs, and most of them are just picking up, and they're just literally receptacles through which,
Well, Doc, I want to stop you and back you up on that. These Atlantic Monthly articles, the MSNBC, the Forbes, there are spelling errors, name errors,
They are? Okay.
They put in Forbes that you had said that that the Obama killing wasn't real when it was Bin Laden killing, and they're getting rid of all the real journalists and hiring mindless yes men, and this is drivel that you would expect an eighth grade school newspaper to be putting out.
I agree with you, Alex. Really what it is it's nothing to do with us. Quite frankly, I'm very proud to be on your show, and I'm proud that our American public is forcing the illiteracy of the media, the mainstream media, to come out with the most absurd comments, poorly written. You and I know they're extremely poorly written, and they're talking about issues now about military dogs that are involved in Afghanistan. Well, you know, if you have nothing else to talk about, while Bahrain is falling, Syria is falling, people are being killed in the thousands, and you really don't know how to analyze this, and you don't know what to say, you have really second-rate writers and second-rate...
Well, that's cheap psychological warfare.
That reflects our culture, by the way. These are the McDonald brains of our, you know, immediate mind. This is a 21st century counterpart to the immediate response where they're totally not qualified to write. They really don't know English. They are not trained in journalism as the other journalists were 20, 30 years ago, where they were investigative. Even Seymour Hersh, who I don't agree with, or you know, some of the famous reporters who spent time and sacrificed their life. However, there are people on the ground, on TV, who sacrificed their lives in Egypt and in Syria. They're trying to get in different parts of the world. But that's not what you're reading. What you're reading is about little individuals who really don't know English, who've been hired from college. It's the cheapest, lowest level. They write in little spurts like Facebook, and they really have no idea of what they're talking about.
You're right, Dr. Pieczenik. Let's come back, though, and get into the evidence of this Bin Laden story being a joke.
$349, $359, $379. How much pain at the pump can you handle? Ease your pain now. Did you know you can increase gas mileage by 25 to 45% or even as high as 60% by adding water? Go to SaveYourGasMoney.com and learn how you can save an average of $750 to $1,850 per year with our hydrogen on-demand technology. Running our hydrogen gas through your engine is the equivalent of using 140 octane fuel. See how it works at SaveYourGasMoney.com. We have 2 complete systems for all cars, trucks, and SUVs for gas and diesel engines. Our gas-saving stainless steel units install easily in about 2 hours with no engine modifications and no extra parts needed. It's completely safe, American-made, requires no maintenance, comes with a lifetime warranty, great technical support, and same-day shipping. Visit SaveYourGasMoney.com or call 888-887-9981. That's 888-887-9981. Ease your pain at the pump with SaveYourGasMoney.com.
Spring and a new growing season are here. Plan a healthy garden easy and fast with OrganicaSeed.com. Easy because OrganicaSeed.com offers one of the largest online selections of organic, heirloom, non-hybrid, and untreated seeds, as well as tobacco and cotton seeds at low prices. Go to OrganicaSeed.com, spelled ORGANICA, seed.com. OrganicaSeed.com. Remember, Organica Seed is healthy seed.
Hi, this is Ted Anderson. Have you ever wondered why banks, stockbrokers, investment advisors won't talk about gold IRAs? They've been available since 1986, yet the financial industry won't recognize the value of gold for your retirement. Gold has outperformed paper investments, yet no word about IRAs. If you would like to have gold for your retirement, call 800-686-2237. Don't get left behind by rising inflation and low returns. Call 800-686-2237. Secure your future and call 1-800-686-2237.
Alex Jones here with key information. The U.S. government is a Ponzi scheme that relies on the Treasury continuously selling large amounts of government bonds to foreign central banks. With Japan about to become a seller of U.S. bonds in order to rebuild its own nation, and the U.S. antagonizing China by calling them currency manipulators, the Federal Reserve, which is already buying about 70% of U.S. Treasuries, will soon be the only buyer left of U.S. Treasuries. Our friends at the National Inflation Association believe that the U.S. dollar will soon become worthless, and Americans will see the purchasing power of their incomes and savings destroyed. I strongly urge my fellow Americans to sign up for the free NIA newsletter at www.inflation.us. If you are sick and tired of the economic propaganda in the mainstream media, sign up for free at inflation.us to learn the economic truth that the mainstream media ignores.
If you're concerned about radiation poisoning from Japan in the air, water, or food and can't find potassium iodide, go to restoreyourhealthnow.com and choose Liquid Zeolite. Liquid Zeolite is hands down the best product to remove radiation from your body and safely removes toxins, heavy metals, boosts energy levels, and promotes a strong immune system. For fatigue, muscle weakness, headaches, memory loss, influenza, joint pain, or toxic radiation poisoning, use Liquid Zeolite from restoreyourhealthnow.com. Liquid Zeolite is so powerful it was used to clean up contamination in Chernobyl, yet so gentle you won't even know you're taking it. Liquid Zeolite comes with a money-back guarantee but is only available at restoreyourhealthnow.com. Learn how to get free bottles of Liquid Zeolite at restoreyourhealthnow.com. That's restoreyourhealthnow.com or call 800-880-9976. Call 800-880-9976 today and learn how to get free bottles of Liquid Zeolite.
Former Black Op mastermind, spy master, Dr. Steve Pieczenik, wrote the book for the State Department on psychological warfare. You know, I was reading Goebbels more than a decade ago, Doctor, and he was talking when Germany was being bombed. It was 1944. They were really losing. And Goebbels said, we got to change our propaganda. The Germans will do whatever we tell them. But this stuff is too ridiculous. It was almost like Baghdad Bob out there saying the Americans are nowhere near Baghdad, and you see explosions a mile behind him and U.S. helicopters flying behind him. The Germans were saying, there's no problem, we're not being bombed. And Goebbels said, look, we've got to get more reality-based. And I think the ham-fisted psyops that these criminals are running are becoming so cartoonish that they may be fooling some of the dumber segments, but most people I know in the polls I've seen, people are not buying it. Dumping the body in the sea, all of this. And I want you to comment on their ham-fisted tactics, Doctor. But before you do that, let's get into MSNBC trying to demonize you, but then going to experts who they read in Salon and others in 2001, 2002, and other publications. MSNBC called Dr. Richard Devereaux and others, and he said, I'm not going to talk about it. He said, I don't want to continue to get calls about this. But he said, yes, he is a Marfanoid. He has the disorder. He had it. He had it back then. There's no doubt. And they say, so that confirms what Pieczenik has to say, but still they make fun of you and myself. I mean, explaining for people, this is 10 years ago. He's on record at a hospital almost dead. Now, you saw him before that when you were working with him in the 80s. I met him once, and you said he looked ill then. Doctor, you're a medical doctor, have 2 medical degrees.
Right.
I mean, I was looking you up. You write some of the most prestigious medical reports in the country, co-author them that have won national awards just recently. Here you are saying he's got this. The media goes out to demonize you and then talks to the top expert on this disease. They admit that. Top doctor confirms bin Laden had Marfan syndrome. They admit you can't live very long with this. Plus, he had total kidney failure. You can't live more than 6 years with that on average. But we're to believe he's in a squalid cesspit with no dialysis equipment. Can you walk through this fairy tale, Doctor?
Yeah. So what happens is you invoked Goering. Let me invoke a man in 1945, a German senior official next to Goering, who was asked the following question by 3 American judges. He was asked, how did you mobilize 35 million people to go to war? His response was, it's very simple. Whether you're a democracy, whether you're communism, or whether you're Nazi nationalism, it's very simple. What you do is you create an attack, a false flag attack. Then you say whoever attacked us is the enemy, and whoever's with us against the enemy is a patriot. Well, that's what happened in 9/11, and the man who was asked that question was Goering. the head of the Air Force. He subsequently committed suicide, and that was in front of the commission and our prosecutors in the Nuremberg trial. So the technique is an old technique of trying to demonize and create we're the patriots in the United States, and anybody against them are enemies. Now, when you try to portray anybody, forget me, or what I am or what I was, it gets very hard when the beginning of the lie is a lie that's so obvious you can't really change it. And then once you create this lie where he had Marfan syndrome, it's been corroborated by many people, let's forget me, but others, Madeleine Albright and others, you continue with a storyline over 9 to 10 years over different bureaucracies. You have to remember there's no continuity in the CIA. Since that time, 9, 10 years ago, I would suspect a good majority of the CIA operatives went out and went into other private businesses, which they normally should do, and many of them came back, and we have probably 70-80% of those who came back are on contract to major 128 or Beltway bandits like Northrop Grumman, Boeing, L3 Communication Corporations, where their loyalty is not to the United States of America. Their loyalty is to the paycheck, and they will be thrown out eventually. And with Petraeus coming in, hopefully, General Petraeus, he will get rid of a lot of these issues and the compartmentalized nature. Now, what happens with somebody like me who's been in the administration, in and out, by the way, I received no pension. I didn't receive, I received very little money. I came in as a consultant. I was not a civil servant. I sometimes had a military rank. I volunteered for most assignments, and I left. I was on line probably 6 or 7, 8 times where my life was...
Doctor, this is a short segment, long 18-minute segment coming up. Stay there. We're going to come back and break this down. But specifically, how long could you live with this disease? Why wasn't there dialysis equipment? And then we'll leave the bin Laden situation and get into other big issues. But and they put out new fake videos that were old videos.
We're on the march. The empire's on the run. Alex Jones and the GCN Radio Network.
A very wealthy U.S. citizen is predicting that in 2011, we will witness the most important day in America in more than 50 years. He says it will change everything about our lives. The way you shop, travel, invest, educate your children, and even how you take care of your health and your own family. Now, this man has made some outrageous predictions over the years. The crazy part is, he's usually right. You see, he predicted the collapse of GM, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and America's biggest mall owner, General Growth Properties. In fact, Barron's called his work a dire prophecy. Recently, he created a video, which you can watch online for free, detailing his biggest and most important prediction yet. And it's a real eye-opener. I can't stress this enough. You should at least watch this free video online today. He explains everything you need to know, including simple steps you can take to protect yourself. You can find the video at www.endofamerica3.com. That's endofamerica, the number 3.com. Watch the free video at www.endofamerica3.com. That's endofamerica3.com. Hi, folks. This is Alex Jones. I'm looking for people that have the wisdom to spot savings, opportunity, and recognize risk. Saving means to make money. The Cal-Ben Pure Soap Company can save you thousands of dollars and give you good old-fashioned real soaps that are triple concentrated and twice as good as what you're using now. Soaps made from vegetable and coconut oils that contain no useless dyes, perfumes, deodorants, or antibacterials. Your risk is the hundreds of hazardous toxic detergents that give you rashes, itching sores, and deteriorating clothing called lint. If you want something better, if you want something you've never had before, you have to do something you've never done before. Getting a free catalog is easy by calling 800-340-7091 or see Calvin on the web at 5starsoap.com. Take charge of your health now by calling 800-340-7091 or see Calvin on the web at 5starsoap.com.
You've heard Alex explain how the Silver Lungs generator infuses the respiratory system with your self-produced colloidal silver solutions, yet many are unaware of the entire function of the Silver Lungs system and how it has been designed to deliver your silver solutions anywhere in or on the body. My name is Mario Cifaldi, and I'm the developer of the Silver Lungs generator. Not only does the Silver Lungs system produce endless colloidal and ionic silver solutions, it also comes equipped with the proper applicators and devices needed to deliver your silver solutions directly to key target areas. This includes the eyes, ears, nose, lungs, topically to the skin, and orally for the digestive system. Be sure to watch our new 7-minute video tour of the Silver Lung system at www.silverlungs.com to learn more about how the Silver Lung system works. As well, we are always ready to answer any questions you may have. That's www.silverlungs.com.
We're going right back to Dr. Pieczenik here in a moment, but first, everybody needs high-quality storable food, and we've got the oldest continually operating and the biggest company in the U.S. They're out in Utah, the experts. High-quality storable food, and when you get a $995 package of the wide selection of gourmet foods that last more than 10 years, no GMO, no hybrid, you can get a 10-day extreme emergency kit, good for 3 people for 10 days, that fits right in your trunk. Absolutely free, a $300 value. eFoodsDirect.com, the letter E, foodsdirect.com. Everybody needs to be prepared, not just for hurricanes and floods and all this, or earthquakes, but for depression. We need storable food. 800-409-5633 or eFoodsDirect.com. Also, the National Inflation Association has an important message. During the financial crisis of late 2008, the only good or service in America that didn't at least temporarily decline in price, besides the cost of health care, was college tuition. We have a college tuition bubble here in America being fueled by the government's willingness to provide student loans to anybody who applies for them, regardless of their future ability to pay them back. Students are being brainwashed into getting $500,000 in debt for a college degree that is rapidly losing its value each year. Student loans are destroying the lives of millions of Americans who would have been better off getting jobs at Walmart. A brand new must-see documentary, College Conspiracy, is coming very soon from our friends at NIA. If you would like to be among the first to see College Conspiracy, sign up for free at the NIA newsletter immediately. That's www.inflation.us. That's inflation.us. And don't forget our online video bookstore, where we have Jesse Ventura's new book, where we have all of my films, where we have Jason Bermas's documentary, Invisible Empire, Mark Dice's Big Brother, The Orwellian Nightmare Come True, the film on geoengineering, What in the World Are They Spraying, all available at Infowars.com. You can also see the live feed of the radio/TV show, the archive of it, all my films, expanded extras, the State Strike Back, the Oath Keepers special interview that just went up yesterday at prisonplanet.tv. Now, going back to Dr. Steve Pieczenik, his website is stevepieczenik.com, Pieczenik spelled P-I-E-C-Z-E-N-I-K. Going back to Dr. Pieczenik, I was talking to Dr. Pieczenik, and I said, look, I know you don't like to toot your horn, and about how you said he had Marfan's, the kidney failure. It's on record. Now they're having to admit it. It's impossible he could still be alive 10 years later. And he said, look, Alex, I don't want to get caught up in their fake narrative. When it's an overall lie, a lot of times, and I agree with them, they put out ridiculous disinfo as a tactic to then make you debate the little lies as if the overall story's true. I get that. But still, sir, as a psychological warfare chief, somebody that analyzed foreign governments' psychological warfare, somebody who launched these things on other governments, somebody who wrote, the book for this on the State Department, the guy that is the top advisor to Tom Clancy, you're the inside guy to make his book so credible. Let's go over no dialysis machine in the hovel that was a palace, not shooting in a 40-minute firefight, not having the wife, not producing the wife, throwing the body into the ocean, the Marfans. You said it last Tuesday, 2 days before they came out, and said that's a fake Situation Room photo, that's staged, that isn't how it works, it's not real. I've been in on those things. And then they come out 2 days later and go, yeah, it was fake. They weren't watching any video feed. They posed for the photo. I mean, you've been 100% right. You're being demonized by thousands of publications, proving that you're on target, you're over the target, getting the flack. So break down the ridiculousness of it, and then we'll get into all the other facets.
Let me go on the ridiculous. First of all, the mansion that they attacked, by the way, is a mansion. So before, all of the propaganda had to do with the fact that this tall, 6'4" individual was carrying around a dialysis machine. Now, everybody in your audience knows this weighs a lot, and you can't carry it through Afghanistan and Tora Bora. That was the former story narrative up to the time of this assault. That somewhere, and you can check it out, he was hidden. Osama was hidden along with Swahili, who's a physician, his number 2 man, in the mountains of Afghanistan and Pakistan, and the president said we couldn't find him. Now, in 10 years, a 6'4" giant with Marfan syndrome walking around with a huge renal dialysis machine, which requires all kinds of ancillary assistance, is running around the mountains of Pakistan, which I've been in, and Afghanistan, and is carrying this and lives in a cave, but presumably was subsequently attacked in this beautiful mansion where he was living at 6 years without anybody knowing. I mean, that's an inherent contradiction. Now, not only is this mansion next to a major city, but more importantly, I want everybody to imagine what the West Point Academy looks like. It's a beautiful academy. I've taught there from time to time. I've given lectures. It's a beautifully located on the Hudson. Well, that's the equivalent of the Pakistan Military Institute. So I want everybody to imagine that a couple of 100 feet from West Point Academy, we found Osama bin Laden dead in this beautiful mansion where we have all kinds of soldiers monitoring the entire area. We have aerial satellites. We have all kinds of aerial satellites. And believe me, our boys are extremely good, particularly in the Army. They're extremely good. I don't want to tell which divisions. I've worked with them. They're smart. They're right on target. Now, if you can't tell me that they couldn't understand that there was Osama bin Laden a couple of 100 feet away from the comparable part of our West Point, that's absurd. Then we get to the fact that they buried Osama bin Laden in the sea, which is not according to Muslim culture. All of my colleagues and friends who are Muslim understand that first you bury them on the land, and his face must point to Mecca. It must point to Mecca. You do not throw him in the water. So whoever developed the narrative didn't know once logistical and tactical issues, really did not understand what our capabilities are in the sky, on the ground, and really belittled in many ways. What I found offensive isn't that we're demonized or I'm demonized. I don't give a hoot whether I'm demonized. I give a hoot that our intelligence community is being demonized by inference because whoever created this story, and I can guarantee you it's not people I work with who are in Army units and elsewhere, and I won't identify them. They're exceedingly bright. They have many master's degrees. They have a great sense of humor, and I know they're laughing at what's happening right now. And these are brave men and women who are sacrificing their lives. And this is offensive to my colleagues who are working right now and dying for us, getting the story where, by the way, the SEALs, which I have had respect for, but they've had a history of some problems, have come from a land-based area and fly into this so-called mortuary, well, it's really a mortuary, and attack Osama bin Laden and shoot him in the face. Now, the story gets so out of proportion that not only does it become ridiculous, but listen to this one, Alex. Within days of the time that you and I talked, I think it was 2-3 days ago, there were 2 books about the SEALs in the New York Times. Now, tell me that isn't propitious timing. And I told my colleagues in the intelligence community, you better inform those who are creating this narrative. This is out of control. You can't suddenly, and it was one of the great intellectual, the literary editors of the New York Times, I forget her name, it's a Japanese last name, but Bill Keller of the New York Times, who's the managing director, should be absolutely ashamed, but ashamed that he's being manipulated and used to produce 2 incredible so-called autobiographies of SEALs, and just about the time that the SEALs were propagating and self-aggrandizing themselves on TV.
Let me stop you there.
2 more books come. Now, in the world of intelligence, this is so egregiously inappropriate that all my colleagues at the Association of Former Intelligence Officers, which I belong to, the National Military Intelligence Agency, which I belong to, and other intelligence groups, we're looking at this, and my colleagues are saying, this is bizarre, and this is an affront to the intelligence community because it makes them sound as if they're stupid. They're not. What's stupid here are the civilians who are running this show, particularly Mr. Donlin, who was a lobbyist, and the so-called national security advisor has no idea what he's talking about. He's a national security advisor to Obama. But guess what he was, Alex? He was a lobbyist for Fannie Mae between 1999 and 2005. Now, you know Fannie Mae was corrupt. And you're telling me that our national security advisor, who's basically a lawyer, went to second-grade schools, not quality schools, and maybe you don't agree with him, but certainly was not very capable, and his sister-in-law and his brother is the advisor to Biden, and he is married to Chief of Staff of Biden. Now, what we have here is a little Kabbalah of incompetency on the civilian side in the White House, which is mandating an amazing intelligence capability that we have, and they're telling them what to do. It's not unlike Bush Jr., who wasn't very bright and said that we had weapons of mass destruction, and many of our people in the intelligence community said, you don't know what you're talking about. And particularly in the military intelligence said, forget it. We're not even following.
And let me stop you, Doctor. Let me stop you.
I like General Petraeus is that he didn't listen to Jerry Bremer, this neocon, and a lot of the men I worked with in the units of special forces and other units said, get out of here, neocons. And now I'm saying to our intelligence community in the military, tell Donlin to leave. And tell the president he better get a new national security team because this is out of control.
All right, Dr. Pieczenik.
People is out of control. Yes, sir.
Dr. Pieczenik, I want to break down all the incredible information you're bringing out, but the point you were making a few minutes ago, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that when you're getting fired at in propaganda or with actual lead, that is a way to see where the enemy is. And if they open up on you immediately, that's evidence that it's staged. And so you have the rollout of the new alert system, the rollout of the new campaign, the rollout of the demonization of Pakistan, the rollout of all this pre-Bin Laden hype that if you kill him, he's going to nuke you in the AP 2 weeks before out of Guantanamo Bay. You can see all the pre-scripting ahead of time showing even more evidence. And now you have the Navy SEAL books, all perfectly timed, a full PR drive, obviously set up at least a year ago. But I want to go over some other points that we haven't brought up to you. You have the ultimate intelligence cache. You have the mastermind of Al-Qaeda with the buried nukes in America, the government saying they've got nukes, total Easter Bunny made up. They're going to get us. But first they say he resisted. No, he didn't. We executed him. We killed him once we drug him out. So they kill the ultimate intelligence source. So even if you believe the official story, they wanted to cover up his CIA history. I want you to speak to killing the greatest intelligence catch, but then it gets worse. They tell us we have 8 hard drives. We know what Al-Qaeda was going to hit now. If it was real and they really had the intelligence, they would say the place burned up. In fact, they would torch the place and say everything burned up, we didn't get intelligence, so all the fake Al-Qaeda networks, if they were real, wouldn't be tipped. I mean, that's basic police, basic intelligence. So can you speak to killing the great intelligence cache?
Is what they are thinking, and not what I'm thinking, but this is the way it would go in the psychological warfare. The reason they're creating, in part, this story that's nonsensical, and it's becoming even more absurd, is that in their mind, not my mind or your mind, in their mind that if they said, listen, we found the hard drives, we found the fast drives, we found all this intelligence, in their mind they're assuming, our intelligence community, that all the other Al-Qaeda units, particularly in Yemen and in North Africa, will be fearful that they can be tracked down. That just doesn't work. Number one, every Al-Qaeda member, and the few that are remaining, by the way, knows that Osama bin Laden was not really in charge of anything operational.
Money. It was just money.
No, he didn't even have money. He's not been around. He's really had no operational effectiveness. I don't think there's one person, honestly, in the intelligence community who, despite giving this nonsensical story, will tell you that he was of strategic importance.
You just dropped another bombshell. Hold on. You just dropped another bombshell. Exactly. It's admitted he was only a figurehead.
Okay.
No. I mean, hadn't had money in a long time, wasn't running anything, so that proves it's another lie, claiming all the operational plans were there on these computers.
That's correct. I mean, there was basically, this is what we call in the PSYOPs world a type of deterrence to try to frighten whatever potential terrorist may or may not be out there. But you have to think for a moment. Our military has effectively killed, let's say, 2,000 so-called al-Qaeda members in Afghanistan at the price of $50 million per al-Qaeda member. That's a lot of money, and that has not been effective. So the overall goal of civil society and the president's notion that we should have love and kumbaya and understanding, get rid of corruption, and by the way, this is quite interesting, given a man who came from a very corrupt city like Chicago, going out internationally and saying we really should get rid of corruption around the world. What in fact has happened is that we have really institutionalized military control in the Middle East. That is, when we took out Mubarak, and I was involved with Mubarak and Sadat before, we really institutionalized military control. And what's happening now in Libya is that we're supporting military control as well. Contrary to what they say, we're bringing in the Egyptian Special Forces. We have Special Forces there. We have CIA operatives, which he had to admit. The truth of the matter is, this entire program isn't just from the intelligence point of view. This is very low level on the intelligence. And from the strategic point of view, this is not working at all. And he has no idea. So Ben Rhodes, who's writing a speech, a very ineffectual foreign policy man who just basically is a political hack, is trying to integrate the so-called killing of Osama bin Laden, which is not true, and what it means for the Middle East, which he has no idea because our intelligence community never picked up the notion that one poor man could put himself on fire in Tunisia and set off a riot in Egypt and then subsequently in Libya and Bahrain. Our real war and the military and the men who are on the ground understand that our real war has nothing to do with Osama bin Laden. That's just what we call a distraction. Our real issue is a fight with Iran right now in Bahrain and in Syria, where Iran is helping the Syrians to suppress many of the dissidents. And this is what's going on. But if we dissect every element of it, what you see right now is you have a civilian government, again, in the White House, who's really not qualified to run international affairs. Forget domestic affairs, because this guy, Tom Donilon, was part of the corruption of Fannie Mae, and how he could have been appointed a national security advisor, a corrupt individual who was a lobbyist for a corrupt institution, as you know, and you've talked about it before. Fannie Mae tells the American president and America this is what we should be believing, while his wife is working for Biden, who also is not the swiftest individual in the world. You have to remember, this is a man who plagiarized many of his speeches long ago and has a problem with a few aneurysms in his head. And now this is what we have controlling the American public, telling us, we, who they consider as dumb rummies, who have to make a living, who have to take two jobs, who have to go to school, as you said, and in a very expensive school systems that are ripping us off. And we have to say, listen, it's enough. Take your incompetency, take your nonsense, and get the hell out of here, because we have to have a living. And the major national security problem that every one of my generals knows and every one of my intelligence colleagues understand is the national debt. It is not Osama. It is not anything else but the national debt.
All right, Dr. Pieczenik, we've got a break. Come back, and I want to look at what the banking system's doing and what the Chicago Mafia is mishandling and where you see things going.
About radioactive fallout, the #1 way by which your body protects itself from radiation or any other free radical is with glutathione. Glutathione is the most ubiquitous antioxidant in the body. The #1 mechanism for removing toxic elements from the body is glutathione. In order for your body to make optimal levels of glutathione, it needs an abundance of the amino acid cysteine. The highest dietary source of cysteine is non-denatured whey protein powder from grass-fed cows. The most non-denatured whey protein powder on the market is One World Whey. One World Whey is an industry first with its True Cool process. It retains all the active components of fresh raw whey. One World Whey is rich in immune, bodybuilding, and detoxification factors that make it a life-giving power food for everyone. One World Whey is sweetened with cold processed stevia and comes in 3 delicious flavors. To hear some impressive testimonies, go to oneworldwhey.com. That's oneworldwhey.com or call 888-988-3325.
If you suffer from poor sleep, you need MyPillow. guaranteed to be the most comfortable pillow you will ever own. Using a patented fill, MyPillow adjusts to your exact individual needs by gently supporting your head, shoulders, and neck. MyPillow has a natural built-in cooling effect, keeping your cervical nerves cool, giving you the best sleep of your life. MyPillow will never go flat and relieves snoring, migraines, sleep apnea, fibromyalgia, and many other disorders. It's antimicrobial, non-allergenic, dust mite resistant, and best of all, machine washable and dryable. MyPillow is made in the USA, has an A rating with the Better Business Bureau, comes with a 60-day money-back guarantee and an industry-leading 10-year warranty. Order today at mypillow.com or call 952-442-6199. That's 952-442-6199. Mention coupon code GCN and receive 20% off your order. What do you have to lose except poor sleep? mypillow.com, the most comfortable pillow you will ever own, guaranteed.
Hi, this is Alex Jones. Did you know that the global elite are now storing non-hybrid seeds in secret storage vaults near the Arctic Circle? Did you know that in a real meltdown, non-hybrid seeds can become more valuable than silver or gold? It's true, seeds have outperformed even gold and silver before in this country, and it's possible that it could even happen again. So our friends at Solutions from Science have put together the perfect mix of non-hybrid seeds. They call it a survival seed bank, and it can produce an endless supply of nutrient-dense food for you and your family. And here's the best part. These seeds have not been genetically modified in any way, and you actually get enough seeds to plant a full acre crisis garden. So visit them today at survivalseedbank.com. That's survivalseedbank.com, or give them a call at 877-327-0365. That's 877-327-0365. Remember, in a real crisis, non-hybrid seeds are the ultimate barter item. This is Alex Jones for survivalseedbank.com.
Don't worry, this show is documented. Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network.
All right, Dr. Steve Pieczenik is going to be with us for the entire next hour. Very gracious. We got a lot of other issues to cover. But during the break, he's joining us via cell phone, so sometimes he can't hear when I try to cut in, which is fine. That tends to limit my interruptions. But I have a lot of questions I want to get to. I want to get to Libya, his view on what's happening there, where he thinks this whole geopolitical system's going, what's happening in the banking system, the economy, and how to take America back with Dr. Steve Pieczenik. And we'll open the phones up at about 15 into the next hour. Toll-free number to join us. We're opening them up now. Specifically, questions for our guest, 800-259-9231, 800-259-9231, and we'll get you up and on the air. And by the way, first-time callers, I want to do that today. First-time callers for Dr. Steve Pieczenik, 800-259-9231. I'd love to hear from military, people in Black Ops, retired. He was talking about most of his colleagues, formerly intelligence or currently, just say, this is embarrassing us. This is going to discredit everybody. This is too obvious. You got a Chicago, New York mafia that are used to always winning, and they're not even using professionals for their lies, and that's why it's gotten so cartoonish. But I was saying, Doc, you didn't get into the point of, if we're to believe the fable that they just killed him, why, if he didn't resist, capture him and get the intel, and you answered it very succinctly.
Well, what I said is basically when the intelligence community wants to show that they can kill Osama bin Laden, they're basically transmitting the message all over the world to potential terrorists that we can kill you. No matter where you are, where you think you can hide, we'll always find you and we will kill you. Also, we know where you are because of the ostensible information we got from the Osama bin Laden compound. So that's the PSYOPs level of that in terms of warning, threatening, and explaining that we're going to hunt you down no matter where you are.
Now, Doc, how does that square with 9/11 being a false flag and Anwar al-Awlaki, born in the U.S., admittedly hanging out at the Pentagon, Adam Gadon, the fake videos, 4 of the new 5 were old videos?
What it does is it compounds. The problem of the narrative is when you started it should have stopped under the Bush Jr. administration. And I think at some point somebody there would have been smart enough to say, okay, we found Osama bin Laden. But from the PSYOPs point of view, they needed that story. They, being the administration continuity narrative, needed the story of Osama bin Laden to be alive so that they could justify our military presence in Afghanistan. And you would hear Bush Jr. said, no, we're still out there. Osama's there. I'm going to get him. Well, he didn't get him in that bravado kind of tone. And it was clear, Bush Jr. was not very qualified to get anything, let alone his own position. But then Obama comes in and says, yes, we'll hunt them down, and once we've hunted them down, we will leave Afghanistan. Well, lo and behold, they are leaving Afghanistan, and propitiously, as we say in the intelligence community, suddenly we found Osama bin Laden, and we killed him. Well, the propitious element of the political expediency is the fact that they use this dead body and narrative in order to justify the exit from Afghanistan and Pakistan. In that process, which is really a tactical issue, Osama bin Laden's death has no relevance to our strategic position, none whatsoever. Our real strategic position is the withdrawal from Pakistan without creating any trouble, which we have now compounded very seriously. One, thanks to Panetta, who is have been using drones and killing a lot of civilians with a lot of collateral damage. Secondly, because the relationship between the CIA, which created the ISI years ago, while I was in the administration, has been absolutely horrendous, and the Pakistanis have used and been used. And so right now there's a relationship that's going on that's in a marriage that I would characterize like a sadomasochistic relationship. The Pakistanis say, hit me, and then they hit me, and then they go back and they hit the CIA, and the CIA says, why did you hit me? And they hit them back. There's this ongoing game that goes on.
Stay there. Got a break, Doc.
You are listening to GCN. Visit GCNlive.com today.
This is Alex Jones with 5 good reasons you should consider buying a solar power generator. Number 1, new climate legislation could easily double or triple your electric bill. Number 2, our new energy czar wants to control how much power your electric company allows you to have. It's true. Total government control of electricity in the name of smart grid technology is coming. Number 3, in some areas of the country, the power grid is dangerously overloaded. And now, new socialist legislation is only compounding the problem. Number 4, dangerous weather is always a threat to local grids. Every year, thousands of families lose their power from weather-related outages. Number 5, a solar power generator provides powerful backup insurance and peace of mind. Folks, I really believe in the solar power generators offered by Solutions from Science, one of my oldest sponsors. You can get more information at www.mysolarbackup.com. That's mysolarbackup.com. Remember, the government doesn't own the sun, so go to mysolarbackup.com or call 1-877-327-0365.
Waging war on corruption. Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
Okay, we're going to, at the start of the next segment, get Dr. Steve Pieczenik's geopolitical overview, looking at Libya, Syria, other areas, the dollar imploding, commodity prices exploding, dollar in graver danger than euro, Financial Times of London, the big private megabanks stealing trillions of dollars, never such a concentration of banking lawyers and bamboozlers from Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan, and others nesting in the White House, Obama fiddling while Rome burns, but finishing up with bin Laden. What, doctor, from a psychological warfare perspective, going into their minds, what were they thinking when they did fake Situation Room photos? What were they thinking when they wrote up this shoddy plan? I mean, was it meant to be so shoddy that people would then debate the shoddy details of the larger issue, or is it as bad as it appears you're saying, and these people are just amateurs? They've got the power, they're leaning on the fact that they're in control, and they think the public is dumb. I mean, what's going on here? Why did they do this?
Well, number one, they do it in order to create a narrative to warn the other potential terrorists around the world that they being units of the special forces, whether it's SEALs or not, there are other equally important, if not more important units, which I won't identify, which are basically creating a story, and I don't want to use the word obfuscate. In other words, they create certain details and narratives that want to not only confuse the American public for many reasons, because they want to justify a narrative for the president, but more importantly, from the intelligence community point of view, they don't want other terrorist groups or other countries to really understand what it is that they're doing or how they did it in terms of coming into a so-called area and acquiring information and creating this storyline, which in fact a whole different storyline might have existed. And that storyline we won't even know, because the intention of PSYOPs and to lie and to create this narrative is to distract other elements outside of this country strategically, either whether it's another country, whether it's Syria, whether it's Iran, to explain to them that if you think we're still ineffectual, I think you better wake up. I mean, if I were to run a story like this and make it so confusing and all, the only element that I would get out of it if I were in this administration is to say to the Iranians, listen, we can create this narrative, and maybe it doesn't work too well for the American public, but rest assured that our helicopters, not necessarily the SEALs, but our units are capable of entering into Iran, and they have. I won't tell you which ones, but they've gone into southern Iran, and the Iranians are well aware that we're on the borders of Iraq and Afghanistan to put a lot of pressure on Iran and the Shiites to tell them to cease and desist getting and stirring up the pot in the Middle East, particularly in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia. Our major concern right now is the Iranian influence that's in Syria, that's in Hamas, that's in Bahrain, that's in Saudi Arabia. So this kind of a story, although it's not plausible to the United States, and it's not even plausible to future terrorists or potential terrorists, is really a way of denoting to Iran and to our potential enemy, which is really Iran at this point, who is sending out Islamic Revolutionary Guards all over the Middle East, that cease and desist, because we will confront you. And the United States did, under Gates, a very effective Secretary of Defense, helped the Saudi Arabians to confront the Iranian agitators in Bahrain, which is near Saudi Arabia, and in the eastern part of Saudi Arabia, to say, we're going to put down this revolution, but we're going to maintain stabilization of the Middle East and not secede it to the Shiites versus the Saudis, because the major strategic partner in all of this is not really Israel as much as it is Saudi Arabia, who's very frightened that if the Shiites get into power, they will be overthrown, and the Shiites within that government, within that nation.
Dr. Pieczenik, we got a break. Let's come back and talk about the larger geopolitical move in the Middle East, North Africa, Libya, where you see things going, then phone calls. Stay with us. We'll get into banking as well.
Diamond Gusset is proud to announce the anthem of the Patriot movement. They're offering a free CD, T-shirt, and bumper sticker with a qualifying purchase. Diamond Gusset offers great products at great prices while keeping Americans working.
I'm looking for a factory where a man can feed his family. Not worried about them moving it south, closing the doors and shutting her down tomorrow. I'm looking for America.
We're American and be proud. Go to gusset.com/America.
The land of the free and the home of the brave. Seems like I just woke up one day and it was gone, long gone. But I know in my heart it's still
Again, go to gusset.com/America today.
Over the last year, Alex has told you about, and many of you have experienced, emergencies and disasters in unprecedented numbers. People have had to literally run for their lives. Folks, this is Steve Shank with eFoods Direct. I'm not here to scare you, but when disaster strikes, you won't have time to think. You must act automatically. What does a pilot do when the helicopter engine fails in flight? No time to think, just act automatically. When the alert is broadcast, the alarm sounds, or the knock comes on your door, you'll need to be ready to act without thinking of what to do or what you need. You need a 5-day extreme emergency kit. With serious supplies and real food to secure 2 adults for 5 days, this powerful $300 extreme emergency kit is free with an order of at least $995 from eFoods Direct. Go to efoodsdirect.com/Alex or call 800-409-5633. That's efoodsdirect.com/Alex. 800-409-5633.
You may be arrested and or subject
tyranny is here. The grim future foretold in 1984 has become reality.
It really says that the state is God.
The United States is now recognized globally as one of the most oppressive police states on Earth. This film conclusively proves the existence of a secret network of FEMA camps, now being expanded nationwide. This documentary exposes how the continuity of government program has established an all-powerful shadow state. Police State 4 chronicles the sickening depths to which our republic has fallen. Prepare to enter the secretive world of emergency dictatorship, body scanners, sound cannons, citizen spies, stage terror, and cameras on every street corner. It's only the beginning of the New World Order's hellish plan. The police state isn't coming. It's here. Secure your copy today at Infowars.com or see it online in the highest quality at PrisonPlanet.tv.
Genesis Communications Radio Network proudly presents The Alex Jones Show, because there's a war on for your mind.
We are into hour number 3. Dr. Steve Pieczenik is our guest. Formerly wrote the book in psychological warfare for the State Department, has consulted and worked for 5 presidents, heading up major departments at the Department of State, under Kissinger and many others. And he joins us for the rest of the hour. I know we got loaded phones. Your calls are coming up. I want to get into the out-of-control establishment that Mr. Pieczenik's been talking about and the danger of their hubris. We're going to be speaking with him in a moment. Also, I want to finish up with his geopolitical outlook and what's really happening in the Middle East. But he said something very astute for stations that don't carry that first 5 minutes. Very astute. I said, I mean, obviously astute, but he really cut to the heart of it. I said, why did they stage this at the core? And obviously there's domestic reasons for re-election, police state, the defense complex, once it's no-bid contracts, it's trillions. I mean, there's a cornucopia of reasons. The globalists, the engineers of society, always go with something if it hits on all cylinders for them, if it helps them on a multifaceted, multivariate level. But I said, what's the core reason for this shoddy, ridiculous, bin Laden's been killed fable internationally? And obviously it's to now menace Pakistan, put pressure on them, but that's only part of it. He said it's Iran. It's a message that, look how ridiculous this is. We don't care. We will set you up. We will attack you if you don't stop sending your people in trying to influence things in Bahrain, things, of course, in Lebanon, and other areas. And he said it's a message to them. It's meant for governments to be able to decipher it because it's so ham-fisted. Now, I wanted to raise this, and we actually had We Are Change 2 years ago. It's in, now 3 years ago, it's in my Cinema Verite documentary about 9/11 Truth Rising, the 911 Chronicles. Gary Hart got confronted about this, but he wrote a letter September 26, 2007, via the Huffington Post, but also had it sent to the Iranian embassy overseas, because they don't have one here. Unsolicited advice for the government of Iran. And he said, and you can go read the letter, he said, presuming that you are not actually ignorant enough to desire war with the United States, you might be well advised to read the history of the sinking of the USS Maine in Havana Harbor in 1898 and the history of the Gulf of Tonkin in 1964. And he goes on to say, we stage terror attacks and we'll stage them again. Do what you're told or we will nuke you. Now, Hart thinks we're so dumb. This was a letter for their intelligence people. But when some migrate activist friends at We Are Change brought it up, he said, I never wrote that letter. And they said, here he is. And he kind of freaked out. And he goes, yeah, I did write that. And that is what I meant. So, again, these globalists, they communicate with each other like adults. But for us, they tell us bin Laden's still alive, Easter Bunny's real, Lucky Charms is real, Keebler elves are real. But this is exactly what Dr. Pieczenik was just saying. Here's Hart, this big, top CFR globalist, skittering around with the whole 9/11 operation, because I saw him publicly bragging on Hardball 2 months before 9/11, saying things are about to change, ha, ha, ha. And Matthews were having a little inside chuckle with each other because these psychopaths like to brag publicly. But continuing, Dr. Pieczenik, that's exactly what you just said without me even raising this. What's your take on what I just read to you?
Well, what you said is correct. What's basically happening is that we are at war without, the president literally saying we are at war in a very serious situation, which, unfortunately, I have to say this, that Secretary of Defense Gates is probably the most serious member of this entire administration, as he was of the Bush Jr. Actually, there are many of us who worked for Bush Sr. who really insisted on Gates coming in and getting rid of Rumsfeld for the simple reason that this man was director of the CIA. He was a very non-ideological man, extremely intelligent, extremely oriented to understanding what America needs, not what the political requirements are in terms of the politicians. And we are now in a very serious confrontation with Iran because the Iranians have, without a question, created a lot of disturbances both in Syria and with the Syrians. Bashar Assad, who's also a physician, by the way. It's interesting. We physicians are in the business of counterterrorism everywhere around the world. So I warn the Obama administration, if they don't give us reimbursements at the right place, we all go into terrorism. That's a joke. But nevertheless, we really have a problem because Bahrain is there and Saudi Arabia is there now. The issue is, it would have been nice, as you said, if the people on top would explain a thesis of what we are doing and where we are going. We also have an economic war right now with China, which is quite serious, which gets to the issue of what you said about we are purposely dropping the dollar. I mean, the Federal Reserve, whatever else can be said about Bernanke, is correctly dropping the dollar in order to go into economic warfare. For 10 years at the National War College, I have requested economic warfare because it is the most effective mechanism that we in the United States have to undermine the Chinese economy, which is totally controlled, totally corrupt, and allows us to bring back our manufacturing and our productivity and reinvent what we are best at, which no other country in the world can do, which is entrepreneurship. And basically, this lowering of the dollar is a way to say to the Chinese, you better watch us because we're going to undercut everything you have right now. And as you've seen in China right now, there have been riots. In a normal year in China, that's normal for them, there are over 75,000 riots. Right now, they have riots of cab drivers that are refusing to work, bus drivers are refusing to work. They know that the American government is stimulating, creating activities, and the Chinese better listen carefully. We are capable of taking down China if we want to. When I was in China 5 years ago, the first question they asked me, because they knew I was an expert in regime change, I don't need military to regime change. I've done 4 or 5 regime changes, the Soviet Union, Aldo Moro, Panama, Cambodia, with far more lethal targets, where they asked me, and I was there on a business trip, Alex. As you know, I'm really a businessman. And they asked me, the first question was, are you here to take us down? And obviously I looked at them, and this was one of the heads of the intelligence community, and I said no. But clearly I knew exactly the determinants of where they could be taken down. And now, in the presence of these kids with the Middle East disruption, with the Facebooks, with the Twitter, they know that they're very vulnerable. And one of the issues that we have right now, and I think correctly, is that we are talking with the Chinese to warn them, number one, you better raise the yuan because we want to get rid of a lot of that debt that is owed, that we owe to you. We want to clear the deck of that. That's the easiest way to do it. Secondly, you better address the issues of middle class rising. And thirdly, you better address the issues of human rights. If we have Christian missionaries there, don't disrupt them. Don't arrest people who want freedom. So we have 2 fronts that are going on, but nobody's explaining that to the American public. On the one hand, we have a war that's going on that's really targeted to Iran, and really a war between the Shiites and the Sunni, where we're trying to support the Sunnis, while at the same time, here's the irony of everything, my friend, without getting too much above it, is that we have had to cut deals. The military, our U.S. military, is a very brave organization, but they're also very smart. They had to cut deals with the Iranians in order to control part of Afghanistan and to control Iraq. In order to do that, we had to tie down the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, while at the same time, we have to show them that we can go in there at any time we want and create disturbances. Now, what makes this even more interesting is that Ahmadinejad, who's the president Iran. Everybody thinks he's crazy. I don't. He was a very effective, he's a PhD in civil engineering, was a very effective leader. He is now in an internal battle with Khamenei.
They're now claiming that his top advisors are devil worshippers.
That's correct. Well, I don't know whether they're devil worshippers, but they're certainly not the most intelligent, brightest, effective guys.
Well, let me just stop you. Let me just stop you because that, Doc, let me just stop because that sounds crazy. Guys, pull up the London Guardian from Sunday. The headline is Ahmadinejad's deputies charged with conjuring jinns. You can't make this up. That's what the Islamic regime, who decides if you can run for president, that's what they're charging his people with, is divination. That's it.
Yeah, no. Let me just say this.
But it sounds crazy, so I have to let folks know I didn't make that up.
Let me just tell you, there's an internal battle going on in Iran. They hear us. They're listening to us. We're trying to affect that internal battle, we, the United States, by positioning our forces and trying to attack and limit the number of agents they're sending overseas. That's all I'm saying. I'm not getting into the belief systems or worship.
I understand. What's going on in Libya? What's going on in Libya?
Libya has been a mistake. What happened in Libya is we had a lot of companies, including Halliburton, John Deere, a lot of the oil companies were in there. But primarily, we have no strategic interest in Libya. Libya is really a strategic interest only to one country more than any, and that is Italy. Italy has about 40 to 50% of its oil through ENI coming in through Libya. So the disturbances that were occurring in Libya was really a spillover from Egypt, and ironically, as you mentioned before, we brought back some of the Al-Qaeda members from Afghanistan and Pakistan, and one of them was interviewed publicly saying, actually in the New York Times, what do you feel about America now? He said, well, before I was 100% against America, but now that America's supplying us with special forces, ammunition, and the Egyptians are helping us, I'm only 50% against America. So you can understand what's happening now is a world where everything is very gray. That's the point. And what you're saying to the audience, and what we do agree, is why don't you explain this to the American public? Stop treating us as if we're dummies. Maybe we can't absorb all of it at one time. Maybe we don't want to hear it. But stop treating us like dummies because, number one, we have to pay for all of this. Number two, it's getting out of hand. Number three, we have to leave from Iraq and Afghanistan. And number four, the only national security issue that's really relevant to any of us Americans is our national debt and the economy.
All right, we're going to take calls for a while, but then we're going to get into the debt, banking before you leave us, and false flag terror. Dr. Steve Pieczenik is our guest. I'm Alex Jones, Infowars.com. StevePieczenik.com is his site.
Do you want to learn more about preparing for the hard times ahead? Have you ever thought about actually getting off the grid and becoming truly self-reliant? Introducing Off the Grid News, a weekly newsletter for independent Americans who want practical advice on how to survive and even prosper in an increasingly dangerous world. It's the best way to get a black belt in emergency preparedness, survival skills, and off-the-grid living. Packed with hard-hitting information on gardening, food preparation, alternative energy, and home security, there's simply nothing like it. And the best part, this $100 annual subscription is now free of charge. Simply sign up today and you'll also get our hard-hitting report, Food Shock, Why 2011 Could Be the Single Most Important Year in American History to Plant a Family Garden. It's absolutely free for listeners who sign up at offthegridnews.net. That's offthegridnews.net. Get your free Food Shock right now at offthegridnews.net.
Go solar for cheap. Want to use solar power but the price is too high? Now you can build your own solar panels for less than $200 at 123cheapsolar.com. Don't laugh. We've sold over 45,000 solar do-it-yourself kits. Watch the step-by-step videos that even non-handyman types can use. We offer a 60-day money-back guarantee. Go to 123cheapsolar.com or call 800-713-0486. 800-713-0486. Reduce your foreign oil dependency when you go green with 123cheapsolar.com.
Hi, this is Ted Anderson. Have you ever wondered why banks, stockbrokers, investment advisors won't talk about gold IRAs? They've been available since 1986, yet the financial industry won't recognize the value of gold for your retirement. Gold has outperformed paper investments, yet no word about IRAs. If you would like to have gold for your retirement, call 800-686-2237. Don't get left behind by rising inflation and low returns. Call 800-686-2237. Secure your future and call 1-800-686-2237. inflation.
Hello, friends. This is Alex Jones. The earthquake, tsunami, and nuclear disaster that killed thousands of Japanese citizens is nothing compared to the devastation that could be caused by hyperinflation that will soon hit the United States and could lead to millions of Americans becoming homeless, all caused by the devalued U.S. dollar. While the mainstream media continues to ignore inflation, our friends at the National Inflation Association provide a free weekly newsletter that educates Americans to the facts and truth about the U.S. economy and inflation. I urge you to sign up at the NIA's free newsletter at www.inflation.us to learn how you can not only survive, but prosper during the upcoming hyperinflation crisis. Silver has more than doubled since the NIA declared silver the best investment for the next decade on inflation.us. The NIA's team of expert economists are happy to answer any economic questions you have about inflation, debt, currencies, real estate, precious metals, and commodities. Visit inflation.us to learn the economic truth that the mainstream media ignores.
Will I have garlic breath after I take Ali-C?
We get that question all the time about the world's best garlic extract, Ali-C. And the answer is, Ali-C contains stabilized allicin, nature's antimicrobial agent, and the active ingredient in crushed garlic, but will not give you garlic breath. Scientifically proven in double-blind studies, using low doses of allicin greatly reduces the number, severity, and duration of common colds. Our powerful Ali-C contains 300 milligrams of stabilized allicin. Just one tablet of Ali-C is equivalent to 40 garlic cloves. It's effective against asthma, MRSA, bacterial, fungal, and viral infections, and helps lower high blood pressure and high cholesterol. Plus, it's a natural mosquito repellent. Boosts resistance to infection with nature's best garlic extract, Ali-C. For more information and to order Ali-C, call 877-888-7126 or go to garlichealthproducts.com. That's 877-888-7126 or garlichealthproducts.com. Fight back with Ali-C.
Another ragtag band
declaring independence. They laid their bodies down in a bloody war.
Laid their bodies down on a bloody war.
For liberty for their descendants. Dr. Steve Pieczenik, I want to go to Downey, John, Scott, Rich, Janice, and many others that are patiently holding, wanted to talk to you. This is a short segment, long segment's coming up. But you were making a point about what you think is going to happen in the future. You said things are going to start spinning faster and faster. We were talking behind the scenes. Now we came back live. What point were you just now getting at?
Well, the economy is getting out of control. Our unemployment is too high. We're starting to be taxed. As you see today, nonprofit organizations need to pay taxes for water. Our services in the cities are really falling apart. Our infrastructure is falling apart. We don't have an economic policy. Our inflation rate will go up, as you correctly said. We're in the wars that we don't belong. We have to pull our soldiers back. The Middle East will erupt even further. China will confront us even more vigorously. But the issues really have to come back to the American public. We have to take back the monies in these wars that are not effective, do not really touch our lives at this particular point in time, and really restructure the United States so that we become America first. We really have to concern ourselves with building our infrastructures, building our national security in terms of the debt, and cutting back on the 850,000 individuals that have top secret clearance on counterterrorism. It's absurd. It's absolutely ridiculous. And the American public is paying for all this ridiculous nonsense on terrorism that doesn't exist. Our real terror issue is the financial crisis, which you said in one of the ads. And now we have to focus on America, and we need a leader who understands how to be a non-ideological, hands-on, forceful individual who's had a history of business experience and knows how to lead us forward in terms of the economy. It's
all right, Doc,
stupid.
Doc, let's do this.
I'm sorry, I don't mean you, but it's what was said to Bush Sr. It's the economy. It still stands on that.
Doc, let me stop you. Since this is a short segment, I promise we'll go directly to calls in the next. Let's get into the economy now. What do we do about the private central banks who make the giant bonuses, take the tax money? I mean, they're not going to stop doing what they're doing. So where do you see America going? What are the main crises facing us?
Well, number one, the banking system has to be rechanged. It's absurd that none of the bankers were indicted, particularly Blank Fine, Ron Rubin, who worked for Citibank, received $75 million, was very much in charge as a consultant for all the corruption that occurred in the subprime mortgages. And he was asked, well, what did you do? You received $75 million in bonus. He said, well, I didn't know anything about it. This is our former Secretary of the Treasury. You're talking about Warren Buffett, who owned 40% of Moody's. He took double D rated junk subprimes and then reconverted it to AAA and sold it. And Warren Buffett goes as the sanctimonious priest of entrepreneurship in America and says, no, I had nothing to do with it. These are men who should be investigated. They should be indicted and put in prison. We are not going after the right individuals. The head of Goldman Sachs, the head of J.P. Morgan should be in prison, not just reprimanded. But the reason why they're not is because there's a collusion. This is not conspiracy. This was even written by the American government in the Financial Crisis Report. I recommend that everybody read it. There's an individual whom I don't know, Phil Angelides, who did a brilliant analysis and commission report on how corrupt our banking system is, and it hasn't changed. We have 21st century second-tier banking, which is not controlled, with all kinds of derivatives and all kinds of financial instruments that will, again, precipitate another financial crisis with 19th century regulation. And we have individuals who are turning around in a turnstile who work in our government, and they go back out into the private sector, and they have no loyalty to our country. So our real problems now is really to indict and begin to investigate Wall Street without this nonsense of saying, I know you did bad, but, don't do it again. And the answer is no. They go to prison. You don't just take one guy who's an Indian or Sri Lankan and put him in because there's an insider trading. You put all of these heads in prison, and this is basically what comes out of the Financial Crisis Inquiry Report, and you put a man like Greenspan, who knew what was happening, and hold him accountable instead of allowing him to go on the press and continue this nonsensical story where, yes, I allowed the free trading company, the free trade to go on, and I allowed derivatives to go on, and CDOs and CDSs, but I'm not accountable. That really was a blip in our economy. Or the Paulsons, who were brought in and knew nothing about our financial capability. He was an investment banker. Again and again, the names are out there, the reports are out there, but we don't have courageous politicians.
Wow, Dr. Steve Pieczenik, got a break. Call straight ahead, and before he leaves us, we'll get more into where we're going financially if this isn't reversed. Very bold information. Stay with us.
We're on the march. The empire's on the run. Alex Jones and the GCN Radio Network.
Hi, folks. This is Alex Jones. I'm looking for people that have the wisdom to spot savings, opportunity, and recognize risk. Saving means to make money. The Cal Ben Pure Soap Company can save you thousands of dollars and give you good old-fashioned real soaps that are triple concentrated and twice as good as what you're using now. Soaps made from vegetable and coconut oils that contain no useless dyes, perfumes, deodorants, or antibacterials. Your risk is the hundreds of hazardous toxic detergents that give you rashes, itching sores, and deteriorating clothing called lint. If you want something better, if you want something you've never had before, you have to do something you've never done before. Getting a free catalog is easy by calling 800-340-7091 or see Calvin on the web at 5starsoap.com. Take charge of your health now by calling 800-340-7091 or see Calvin on the web at 5starsoap.com. This is Alex Jones with 5 good reasons you should consider buying a solar power generator. Number 1, new climate legislation could easily double or triple your electric bill. Number 2, our new energy czar wants to control how much power your electric company allows you to have. It's true. Total government control of electricity in the name of smart grid technology is coming. Number 3, in some areas of the country, the power grid is dangerously overloaded. And now, new socialist legislation is only compounding the problem. Number 4, dangerous weather is always a threat to local grids. Every year, thousands of families lose their power from weather-related outages. Number 5, a solar power generator provides powerful backup, insurance, and peace of mind. Folks, I really believe in the solar power generators offered by Solutions from Science, one of my oldest sponsors. You can get more information at www.mysolarbackup.com. That's mysolarbackup.com.
Remember, the government doesn't own the sun, so go to mysolarbackup.com or call 1-877-327-0365.
Over the last year, Alex has told you about, and many of you have experienced, emergencies and disasters in unprecedented numbers. People have had to literally run for their lives. Folks, this is Steve Shank with eFoods Direct. I'm not here to scare you, but when disaster strikes, you won't have time to think. You must act automatically. What does a pilot do when the helicopter engine fails in flight? No time to think, just act automatically. When the alert is broadcast, the alarm sounds, or the knock comes on your door, you'll need to be ready to act without thinking of what to do or what you need. You need a 5-day extreme emergency kit. With serious supplies and real food to secure 2 adults for 5 days, this powerful $300 extreme emergency kit is free with an order of at least $995 from eFoods Direct. Go to efoodsdirect.com/Alex or call 800-409-5633. That's efoodsdirect.com/Alex. 800-409-5633.
Okay, we're going to your phone calls. Let's go ahead and talk to Downey in Texas. You're on the air with Dr. Steve Pieczenik. Go ahead.
Thank you, Alex. I'd like to ask the doctor, what is more embarrassing or dangerous? Are intelligence agencies' inept, inconsistent, unbelievable narrative and the main media trying to fight it and defend it, or the fact that there are a great number of well-meaning Americans that believe the fairy tale? Which one's more embarrassing?
Well, you hit it on the head. I think it's embarrassing that the intelligence narrative is so bizarre that the mainstream media, it's an indictment of the mainstream media and everybody involved in it. And it tells you that the New York Times and the Washington Post and all these so-called distinguished newspapers are really, it's pathetic. So I would agree that I think it's very embarrassing, the first one. But that's an excellent question. And unfortunately, you bring up the point that they treat us as if we're dumb rummies. And we're not.
Well, I want Downey to be able to ask another question and then have Dr. Pieczenik elaborate. But I want to say this. I think that's the method to the madness, is they're trying to get all of us to buy into torture being good, TSA sticking their hands down our pants, $2 million Defense Department cameras in one elementary school studying the kids in San Antonio. All of this is over the top on purpose to give us learned helplessness, and you're a psychiatrist, you know about that, doctor. But more importantly, they're testing the mainstream media and getting them to buy into things that are cartoonish to just train them to accept more and more crazy things. It's like in the last 9 years, I see AP articles every month. Bin Laden puts out new warning, he will strike. And then at the bottom, it'll say, this came from a message board with no proof. So they're training us to run with idiocy. I mean, doctor, isn't there some of that going on here, or is it just...
Well, let me say the most important part in my point of view. I don't have to be a psychiatrist, but from a financial point of view, I think what you're seeing is the death knell of the mainstream media. In other words, as much as the president has been desperate and came out with this nonsensical story, what you're seeing is the mainstream media is converting from the so-called journalism that was really practiced very well at Columbia School and elsewhere into a cartoon. They become graphic novels. And the reason isn't so much they're trying to suppress us. The reason is they are losing money. And they are in financial trouble. You follow the money trail in America, and you find out what's the problem.
And instead of going back to what made them great, they're digging their hole deeper. They're digging their hole deeper.
The hole is very deep. The main holder who's given them a bond that they have to pay 14% interest on is a Mexican who owns the New York Times. Now, the New York Times doesn't do an internal story on them. The Washington Post is in trouble because the Internet is competing with them. The Financial Times is basically an extension of Pearson International, which has never done very well. They were the overseers of my publishing company, Berkeley. They've never done well. They now have a new president who's an accountant and basically really doesn't know anything. They never made a profit. So when you look at these elements and these financial institutions institutions that tried to suppress us, it's not working anymore. That's the comedy of the entire thing. It's a tragic comedy because they have become not newspapers, but graphic novels. If you look at the front page of the New York Times, what's the mainline story? Well, girls who go to the prom second night, that's the major story that you want to know about, girls going to a prom, when in fact the entire world is falling apart, and there's more news on Alex Jones. Well, how is the New York Times or MSNBC, which is also going under, because cable news networks are going under, the TV shows are going under, they know that because I do TV shows, ABC has not been effective, NBC has not been effective, all of these narcissistic fools that you see on there lauding their own presence as commentators have to compete with Alex Jones, who's not seen and basically is heard, and he has to say the truth. So how are they going to compete with you, Alex? They have financial troubles. You may not. I'm not interested. But the point is you have a growing audience, and the American public is not reading this nonsense anymore.
Well, that's the thing, Doc. I mean, if they tried to do any real news with all of their money and power, we wouldn't be competition for them. I mean, it's scary that a couple of years ago I had 3 million listeners a week, and now we've done the numbers again lately. It's more like 5 million a day, radio, 2 million a day, internet, just on one YouTube channel, 5 million views.
Alex, do you have to advertise on CNN to tell them? Well, then why is the New York Times advertising you and telling you why they are so important when they only have a readership of maybe 600,000?
No, that's what I'm saying is they're paper tigers.
That's my point.
I mean, 1 minute on MSNBC during prime time with 500,000 viewers costs $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. A ad here with a bigger audience, literally dwarfing it, is $300. So that's the last illusion to fall. Is that you pay 15, 20 times for something that is worth far less, and they know that that final shoe is dropping. But we could talk forever with Dr. Pieczenik.
No, but the point here is not that. The point is what the gentleman said. It is embarrassing, not for us. It's embarrassing for them because this is the death knell for them in buying the intelligence of false narratives and then reinventing the narratives and trying to dissect the narratives with comedy and absurdity. So, honestly, it's really an indictment of the system, and the gentleman is absolutely correct.
Yeah. Downey, anything else? Downey, anything else?
Yeah, my son's not going to believe I got on. He's 10-year-old and big fan of yours, so I'll just say, A-Boy, that's his nickname, and I do have a question for you. Do you have any plans for this coming 9/11? It's a pretty big,
I don't know. Look, here's the deal. I get invited all over the place, and people want to pay me, no exaggeration, I've been offered a lot of money to go speak at events. I could do that. I could pack 3-4 times what Glenn Beck does. But then to pay for it, you got to sell tickets and stuff. I just more and more I can electronically study, read, sit here in my little crow's nest and tell folks what's over the horizon, and then we go over the horizon and there's there it is. I can reach, no exaggeration, it's exponential. I'm not bragging. In fact, it's very daunting. It's humbling because I realize I'm just a regular guy. We're reaching, again, it was 3 million a day overall just a few months ago. Now it's over 5 million, and the growth curve is within 6 months we'll be reaching 10 million a day. And so I could go to demonstrations in New York. I could go down in Bullhorn, Obama. It's just those are pea shooters compared to what this electronic system can do. Now, getting the public to move onto the streets and to the state houses, that's where the power is, and that's what I'm going to have Dr. Pieczenik back on soon to talk about ways, ideas he's got to really get the American people moving. But I appreciate your call, Downey. And I'm not bragging about the power of this show. It actually freaks me out because I just feel like a regular common sense guy who studied things. This stuff's all very clear what's going on. And the establishment, I think, is drinking their own Kool-Aid. They basically poison the well of information, but then they drink from it. John in Texas, you're on the air with Dr. Steve Pieczenik of StevePieczenik.com. Go ahead, John.
Doctor and Alex, this is an honor. I'm going to simplify what you all have been talking about, and I want the doctor's response on what I have to say. But I believe that since World War II, the globalists and the corporatists have had an agenda to manipulate the world's assets and reserves, things of minerals and natural resources and things that are of value to large multinational corporations. And I'm a firm believer that the resources of the American people have been mortgaged through the military-industrial complex and the CIA and all of these secret armies and illegal activities. And by the way, I think Osama is more or less a theatrical prop to benefit the globalist agenda to confiscate and materialize huge masses of wealth for their own benefit. And I think patriotism has been confused with this globalist agenda. And I think it's so simple. We have been duped as Americans into believing that we've been fighting wars on terrorism, when it all boils down very simply to taking the assets of sovereign nations with real people just like you and I in those countries who live there. And
who, by the
deserve
way,
some
would
benefit.
sell them to us cheaper. They would sell it to us, but then the military-industrial complex and the banks and others couldn't control those countries and couldn't make money in the stealing of it from us, the taxpayers. But what's your question for Dr. Pieczenik? Because what you're saying is just historical reality.
Well, let me say what Secretary of Defense Gates said. Basically, supporting the military-industrial complex for more money and more acquisitions of absurd studies and equipment that we don't need, along the lines he said, is not indicative of more patriotism. If anything, less is more. We have to go back to the concerns of our own country, as you implied, which means we have to develop our own oil resources. In the United States, we have it. In Montana, we have enough oil to equal what you have in Saudi Arabia. We have to deal with our own water supplies where we don't have to ship it overseas. We have to be able to build our own infrastructure. In short, the crux of our system, the kleptocracy that came out of the system is not American and should be destroyed. Simply as that. The Wall Street, the transnational corporations, there's no reason why the oil companies shouldn't be taxed and shouldn't be held accountable. They're not supplying the oil to the United States. What their propaganda is, very simply, is the oil that we acquired in the Middle East doesn't go to America. It goes to China and Japan. So you're correct. We're sending soldiers to protect pipelines, which don't really have any national security bearing, but people like Cheney, that what I call the cowards and the alcoholics like Cheney, who was a bum to begin with in Yale where he was thrown out, and then Wisconsin, who never fought a war and refused to serve our country, is typical of these transnational corporations, the military-industrial complex, where they're cowardly. Cheney was the most cowardly vice president I had ever met, who refused to serve 8 times, and then in braggadocio, this alcoholic bum from Texas goes out and now lives in Wyoming. I know exactly where he lives, and then insists that we go to war on behalf of his transnational oil companies from Texas and elsewhere.
And then the bum moves Halliburton to Dubai.
And that's Halliburton to Dubai. And by the way, Halliburton was, as you know, the subsidiary of it was LBJ's company, BB&R, which was then taken over. And what's interesting is Cheney actually lost, while he was CEO, net asset values of Halliburton. But my point is very simple to the American public. This is enough. If we do not hold these leaders of the transnational corporations, of the banking world, and the president, who does represent the interests of the banking world, or Mr. Donlin, who represents Fannie Mae and the crookedness of it, or the Ben Rhodes, who's nothing more than a local politician from New York, or the Clintons, who have been, it was really amazing. When Clinton left office, he said, I'm so poor. Within years, he became a $100 millionaire. And basically his wife, who was against the ports of Dubai, that Dubai bought our ports, while Clinton was supporting it.
No, it's all staged. We've got to move fast. We've got to move fast, Doc.
It's the heart of our republic, and we have to destroy this kind of kleptocracy, period.
Kleptocracy is a good word for it. Crony kleptocracy.
It is a kleptocracy. And that's what I think the gentleman's getting at. Whatever you want to call it, it's a kleptocracy.
Right. I got to get to these
America.
callers. Very good points. Thank you, John. Scott in Texas, then Rich in Arizona, Janice in Minnesota, and then Dave in Long Island is all we got time for. Scott in Texas, go ahead.
Yeah, there's a, thanks for taking my call. God bless you guys. Listen, two things real quick. In that staged situation room photo, I was noticing how Obama just is sitting there looking like a whipped dog. If there was a picture taken a few seconds earlier, it probably shows him serving coffee. I mean, presidential is the last thing he looks like in that picture. I don't know why they put that one out.
Well, Rahm Emanuel, his little friend, his little ballet dancer helper, in public, the New York Times reported, cracks his knuckles, does fist things in front of the congressional delegations, and bosses Obama around in front of him like he literally is his valet. Dr. Pieczenik comments.
Well, I think it's a bizarre relationship to begin with. That's why I said, and I do fair warning to Obama, that I think the longer he goes out and propagates this nonsense and narrative with Donlin there and with Daley from the Chicago Machinery, it's going to open up questions about his relationship with Rahm Emanuel, who got a master's degree in ballet, and he himself has a questionable history how he came to that position. But what's a disconnect, and here's the important part, Alex, and my dear friends on the show. If you were to have an individual, a woman, and now follow me for a minute, who in 1960s, on her own, had a PhD and went out to this is a Christian woman who goes into a Muslim country like Indonesia and serves our country bravely, teaching, but doing other things that are for our national security in an attempted coup. I think I would be pretty proud of my mother if that were her. Well, that turns out to be Obama's mother. Now, there is a major disconnect between this man who looks like he's really zombied out most of the time. He has no major affect. He is bossed around. I often find that he's bossed around by his wife. I mean, I find it bizarre that Michelle leaves on the president's birthday with his girlfriend into Spain. All of this is bizarre, but most bizarre is this disconnect between a woman who is exceedingly brave from Midwest America, goes into a country that was exceedingly dangerous, the years of living dangerously, into Indonesia, and then turns out to be the mother of Obama.
Well, there's no doubt. I mean, as you know, you just said CIA operative, so you have that same intel?
Yeah, I mean, Madsen's correct. It's not just that, but I checked it out beyond that. When you work for the East-West Center, which I was, I was involved with because I was Deputy Assistant Secretary of East Asia, that's in Hawaii, and you work for the CIA one way or the other. You're funded. A PhD woman who teaches Russian and learns Russian in the 1950s and 60s should be very proud she worked for the CIA. Now, let me explain this to the audience. Working for the CIA is not anathema. They have protected our country during the 50s and 60s and 70s. What's anathema is that the degradation that has happened to the CIA and the rest of the intelligence community because they were taken over by people who insisted that this intelligence network, which has been very valuable to our national security, now serve domestic purposes and purposes that don't fit our national security system. But if I had a mother who had been in the CIA and served my country and put her life at stake in a Muslim country in 1960, my God, I would stand up there and say, I am very proud. There's a total disconnect here. This president doesn't say anything about her mother. The best he says is, she's a hippie. That was no hippie. A woman who's studying Russian and goes into Indonesia, works for the Export-Import Bank, the Hawaiian East-West Center. Those are facts. That's not something that's made up. Madsen, by the way, I do not know him, but I know his clearances were a lot higher than my clearances if you're working at the National Security Agency, for sure. My point is, if you put it all together, we have a very dangerous situation where a president whose background has been questionable at best, whose performance is questionable at best, whose next speech next week will be about how he killed Osama bin Laden and how that fits into the riots in the Middle East, which I have no idea, becomes even more bizarre, who is fronting for the best of it, as I can understand, for politicians and businessmen who are from Wall Street who've never been indicted for kleptocracy. We have a Republican and a Democratic political body that is totally cowardly, whose only interest is self-aggrandizement, and we have an American public that's waiting to erupt to say, cease and desist all this nonsense. Our major concerns has to be the debt, jobs. We don't have enough jobs. Community services. We don't want to go.
Absolutely, Doc. We're almost out of time. Let's go to some more calls. Scott, real fast. Anything else?
Yeah, I think it's insulting that they tell us that Osama was still masterminding and orchestrating all of this stuff, and then they show us this picture, and his HQ's got 2 old TVs, a VCR, and a laptop. I mean, that makes national security look ridiculous.
It's all fake, and they admit it is.
You're absolutely correct.
I mean, it's all fake, folks.
You're right.
I mean, literally, him and Emmanuel are dancing around in women's clothing. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Rich in Arizona, you're on the air. Go ahead. Go ahead, Rich.
Sorry, gentlemen, I had to turn my speaker off. So I had a question for Dr. Pieczenik, and also, if you'll allow me to, I wanted to make just a quick comment of kind of my own observations of the mentality in our country now. To get to the country, here's my observation. I wanted to see if I could validate it with obviously a very high-ranking official. Here's kind of what I think, is that if you pay attention to the news that had come out, a couple Sundays ago, they hit it late, they go out, and they just come up with a complete fable. Everybody in the house has a gun. There's a 40-minute firefight, and the whole story unravels. But what I think, and what it seems to me, is that really all that matters, and I wanted to know if this is the strategy, is just whatever we say first is what the public will believe. We can say whatever we want at first, because as the details come out, it's going to be shrugged off.
And once the mainstream whore media, the dying dinosaur, signs onto a lie, they're now committed to go along with it. Dr. Pieczenik, what's your comment on what Rich is saying?
I think you both articulated brilliantly. I think you're correct. Whatever they say first is what they think, and then the dying dinosaur goes along with the lie, and they're both going to become extinct. That's what happens.
Anything else, Rich?
Dinosaur.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, whatever they say first is the so-called reality. Also, if you'll allow me a couple of seconds, just a brief.
Sure.
So I had a conversation with a woman at work. Like I said, this is a little off topic, but it illustrates the mindset. Talking about organic foods with a woman at work. This woman that I work with literally believed, I laughed at her, she literally believed that you should not go organic because she was led to believe by going organic, and meaning even food, cosmetics, deodorant, shampoo, everything, that it lowers your body's immune system.
No, it's the opposite. It's the opposite. When your body.
The opposite. There's no question.
Well, you're a doctor. Tell us that, Doc. I mean, is it good to live in a bubble?
The organic systems, the natural products are antioxidants. They help our immune systems collectively. A friend of mine, my partner John Newstead, and I have the website NBI Health, and we produce products for natural health, like Osteo-K for osteoporosis, but that's totally opposite.
Well, I mean, if that was true, the bubble boy wouldn't have been sick and had to live in a bubble because he had no immune system. You need to, people that have dogs, their immune system gets better.
Yeah, but I thank you for the comment. But the point about who says things first does stick, but unfortunately in modern times, they're reverting back to stories that make no sense after they've made that first idiotic statement. So,
By the way, Doc, since you raised that, because you won't let me plug your books or anything you're doing, I'm glad you brought up your big passion, your health products, some of which, go directly to doctors. Tell folks about your health website.
Well, it's called Nutritional Biochemistry Inc. Years ago, what I did in one of my businesses was I was very tired of watching women taking Actonel, Physomax, and Boniva, and noticing that there was an increased amount of esophageal bleeding, cancer of the jaw. And my partner and I, John Newstead at NBIHealth.com, 5 years ago in Bozeman, Montana, we developed a product that was approved. The natural product is MK4. It's a form of vitamin K2, which does not clot. And in Japan, in 1999, it was approved as a medicine for osteoporosis. And I said, my God, this is what the American public needs. We have 39 million women who have osteoporosis. They have side effects. They have pain. They have joint pain. And the Actonel Physomax products have over 900 lawsuits with Sally Fields propagating this product, and talk about movie stars who came out of the left and decided to make more money. I said, and my partner John Newstead at NBI Health said, we're going to produce this product and people are going to enjoy it. So if you go to the NBI Health site, you'll see testimonials from women whom we didn't solicit anything, saying how it's improved, decreased their fracture rate, how osteoporosis has improved, the bone density has improved, and what the product really does, it's a natural vitamin K2, which increases the collagen strength of the bone, not just bone density, because bone density in and of itself doesn't mean very much, and most of the products that you see only increase fractures by 16% or prevent fractures by 50%. Calcium and vitamin D is not sufficient. So that's what I did. But I don't want to minimize what we've been talking about, and I made a specific purpose. But Alex was so kind and so generous that he offered to allow us to, one, publicize on your site. That was not an initial condition, so for truth and honesty. And secondly, he's asked me to discuss a little bit about osteoporosis, but I think that the audience should really look at our website, read the references, read what's there in terms of what we discovered, and the Japanese Ministry of Health mandated that as a medicine. And I think that'll be very helpful. But I'd like to get back to the political
Absolutely.
issues.
Now, I've already had you for an hour and 55 minutes. I only want to do
No,
5.
I'll keep going.
No.
Honestly, I enjoy this as much as, this is so important to me that I have to tell the audience why Alex is important to me. At a time when I came out 10 years ago, I didn't look for any publicity, as Alex knows, and I'm not really interested in publicity. I had gone on TV shows after 9/11 and explained what happened, and most of the mainstream media was really a disaster, as you subsequently learned. But Alex Jones was kind enough to put me on the radio show, and I said at that time, this was a false flag. It was a stand down. This is a classical technique that's been used for years. Alex knew about it. The audience knew about it. But everybody, of course, put me in the category of saying he's kook, he's crazy, or basically he's a right-winger, or he's a conspiracy theorist. Fortunately enough, Cheney, Rumsfeld, and those I worked with, the neocons, kept their mouths shut because I warned them that if they had anything to say, it would get more and more drastic. And they learned the lesson then. Robert Gates was brought in, fortunately, because Bush Sr., who's an incredible statesman, understood that Bush Jr. was out of control. But let's jump forward.
Stay there, sir. Back in 1 minute. Then we'll go to Janice and Dave, and that'll be it with Dr. Steve Pieczenik. Back in 1 minute in Overdrive.
Thank you for listening to GCN. Visit GCNlive.com today.
A very wealthy U.S. citizen is predicting that in 2011, we will witness the most important day in America in more than 50 years. He says it will change everything about our lives. The way you shop, travel, invest, educate your children, and even how you take care of your health and your own family. Now, this man has made some outrageous predictions over the years. The crazy part is, he's usually right. You see, he predicted the collapse of GM, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and America's biggest mall owner, General Growth Properties. In fact, Barron's called his work a dire prophecy. Recently, he created a video, which you can watch online for free, detailing his biggest and most important prediction yet. And it's a real eye-opener. I can't stress this enough. You should at least watch this free video online today. He explains everything you need to know, including simple steps you can take to protect yourself. You can find the video at www.endofamerica3.com. That's endofamerica3.com. Watch the free video at www.endofamerica3.com. That's endofamerica3.com.
Coast to coast, direct from Austin. You're listening to the Alex Jones Broadcasting Network.
We are on the march. The Empire is on the run. Alex Jones and the GCN Radio Network.
We got to get Dr. Pieczenik back on, because every time he tells me something, I go look it up, and it's true. He was talking about when he was at the RAND Corporation, he was the main guy developing the takedown plan for the Soviet Union via Afghanistan with Brzezinski. I mean, the stories this guy could tell, because we got the big national Russian TV calling up, wanting to get a hold of Pieczenik to have him on. I said, why do they want you on? He goes, well, because I helped bring him down. Dr. Pieczenik, we'll give you a break for a few weeks, but I want to get you back on to just talk about...
You can bring me back next week if you want to, but basically the takedown of the Soviet Union was done at the request of Dr. Richard Solomon, who was then the head of the RAND Corporation. I had nothing to do with Brzezinski, and he asked me to develop a plan, which was 153 pages on psychological determinants for the takedown of the Soviet Union, and I used the rock and roll, the Pope, who was very, very helpful to us. the military budget, SDI. Reagan was exceedingly helpful. We worked with him, and then Reagan brought me back in, and I worked with some members of the CIA. One was Fritz Ehrmath, who is now open, but there were a lot of members of the CIA, Don Gregg, Jim Lilly, who were very famous operatives and became ambassadors, and we were all involved in Matlock. We're all involved in the takedown of the Soviet Union, but it was not given to us. We literally had a program in the first 100 days to take down the Soviet Union.
But did Brzezinski pick up on that plan? Because I know, I mean, you were in the White House when Brzezinski was there, correct? Or at that time?
Well, no, I was in the State Department. Brzezinski was actually attacking the man I was working with, who was a wonderful Secretary of State, Cyrus Vance. Internally, we had a very major fight between Brzezinski and Cyrus Vance. I have nothing against Brzezinski. I think he's a very smart individual, but I was in the State Department at the time, and the war was between Brzezinski. Carter couldn't control it. I worked for Warren Christopher and Cyrus Vance, and he was a very nice gentleman. And then I worked on Camp David, and Carter really deserves the credit for that, as does Cyrus Vance and Warren Christopher. And unfortunately, Warren Christopher just died a month ago, a very great Deputy Secretary of State and also a great Secretary of State. He was a Democrat, and as I said to you, both Democrats and Republicans are capable and are also incompetent.
All right, let's quickly jam in two more. Quick question from Janice in Minnesota, and then Dave. Quick question, Janice.
Okay, I don't have a quick question. I heard you, Dr. Pieczenik, on Coast to Coast the other night, and I was very shocked at the comment you made. You started talking about politics, and I understand you're quite the insider and so on as far as your knowledge, and I do respect that. However, when you said that the greatest president that we have had in modern times is Herbert Walker Bush, the senior, I was just quite taken aback because here he is. He was the head of the CIA, and
I got your question. We got to move. What's your statement?
What I said, let me just correct it. For me, I was asked, whom did I think, for me, was the most important president in terms of foreign policy, and I said I felt he was very seriously undervalued. And really, nobody talked about what he had accomplished.
You're saying compared to Obama and Junior and Clinton and all these people...
I mean, he was really quite effective and very modest. You never heard of what he did, and he did a lot. Took down apartheid. Forget the other things. He was involved in the takedown of the Soviet Union. He was involved in the takedown of Debussy. He was involved in the takedown of Mengistu. He was involved in the takedown of Noriega. I mean, what this gentleman did quietly, and he was involved in the Ethiopian... a movement into his. I mean, this man did a lot in foreign policy and never said a word. He and Brent Scowcroft were amazing. And so we do have presidents who are quite distinguished. Whether you like it or not, what he did domestically is another issue. I'm just talking from my point of view. I'm not an insider. Quite frankly, I'm an outsider. I was never invited to anybody's meals. I'm not invited to anybody. Despite the fact everybody thinks I'm in the CFR, which I am, I'm also a member of the Association of Former Intelligence Operatives, National Military Intelligence Association, a member of the Writers Guild, and a member of the Producers Guild and the Academy of Arts and Sciences, none of which means anything to anybody, and a member of the Red Carpet Lounge at United Airlines. So what I'm simply
Hold on. We can't end it there. We can't end it there. We got to come back and finish up with that. A little bit on Tom Clancy, and then Dave in Long Island. That'll be it. Dr. Pieczenik twisting his arm with us. It's just a treasure trove of info. And he called 9/11. He called the fake Bin Laden thing. He's got courage. That's why he's here.
If you owe money to the IRS, you can't make the problem go away by yourself. But with the help of Dan Pilla, you can get your problem solved once and for all.
Hi, I'm Dan Pilla. For 30 years, I've helped thousands of people solve their tax debt problem, and I can help you solve yours too. We take a very simple but proven 3-step approach to solving your problem. First, we stabilize IRS collection actions so you don't have to worry about the IRS seizing your bank account or paycheck. Next, we build a comprehensive plan to get your tax debt reduced to the fullest extent possible, sometimes even completely eliminated. And finally, we work with you every step of the way to get your problem solved once and for all. Call us for a free consultation. Call 1-800-346-6829. We'll work together to get your problem solved, guaranteed.
Dan Pilla has been protecting taxpayers from the IRS for 3 decades, and he can help you too. Call us today at 800-346-6829. That's 800-34-NO-TAX.
America, you've been warned. For weeks, we've been warning you about a single event we believe will happen in the next 12 months that will shake the very foundations of our nation. We've told you about the video that details this shocking prediction. So far, over 6 million people have watched this free video online. Have you? Again, this big event has nothing to do with war or the stock market, yet it could change everything about your normal way of life. The way you shop, travel, invest, educate your children, and even how you take care of your health and your family. Could this really happen? Well, the man who created this video has been right about many predictions in his career. He was among the first to predict the collapse of GM, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and America's biggest mall owner, General Growth Properties. In fact, Barron's called his work a dire prophecy. If you haven't taken time to watch this free video, do it right now. You may never think about America the same way again. You can find the free video at endofamerica3.com. Again, that's www.endofamerica3.com. Watch the free video at endofamerica3.com. That's endofamerica3.com.
For centuries, silver has been used as a powerful natural antibiotic, and as a listener to this station, you probably already know the benefits of using colloidal silver. With so many websites to choose from, finding a reputable, patriotic company with great products at affordable prices can be a difficult task. Introducing UtopiaSilver.com. UtopiaSilver.com carries the best, most effective, and most affordable colloidal silver and colloidal gold products in the industry. UtopiaSilver.com also carries products to fit your lifestyle, including weight loss, immune system defense, cleanses, herbs, joint and bone care, and much more. First-time customers using promo code GCN50 will receive 50% off all colloidal products. Visit us today at Utopia Silver, that's UTOPIA Silver, utopiasilver.com, or call 888-213-4338. That's 888-213-4338. UtopiaSilver.com, taking back America's healthcare one American at a time.
Amazing 2+ hour long live interview with Dr. Steve Pieczenik, stevepieczenik.com. We're going to talk to just Dave in Long Island. That's going to be it for calls. But before we go to Dave, this final caller, what does Tom Clancy think about what you're doing? Because I was reading the synopsis of Coast to Coast AM a few nights ago. When you were on, I guess it would be Tuesday night. I read some of the synopsis yesterday, was unable to listen because I had to get some shut-eye because you were on late. But the quote I saw was that you were talking about you're working on some new books with Tom Clancy. But what's Tom Clancy's view of you can, I mean, not speak for him, but
I can't speak for Tom. I haven't talked to him in a while. But basically, Tom is a very realistic, smart individual who understands psychological warfare. He's also very funny, what I said. I mean, when you work with him, this is an exceedingly smart, witty individual who understands the dynamics of what's going on. I can't speak on his behalf. I haven't seen him in a while, but he's, I really don't know what he thinks right now in terms of Obama and Osama. And quite frankly, the books we worked on, the various books prior to that and the books that he had, there was always a sense of human reality testing, which is lacking in this country right now. Number one, we do have a need of humor on behalf of some of the people who take themselves so seriously. They're very pretentious, particularly our political leaders, whether it's the head of the Republican Party or the Democratic Party. They seem to be very pompous and self-righteous, and good God, every pronouncement sounds as if this was from the words of God. And at the same time, somebody pointed out correctly, your listeners, that Obama doesn't seem to be there. There seems to be what I call a dissociation between the man and his emotions. He's got a very flat affect, what we call very flat, and people pick that up. It's almost as if he's not connected to the message he's saying, yet when he's on the trail, he just loves to shake hands. But be it as it may, people will have different perspectives. As to what Tom thinks, I really don't know. You'd have to interview him, and it would be interesting to hear.
Let me throw this out there because you are a psychiatrist and a psych warfare expert. Myself individually, obviously when I was 25, I wanted to impress women. But that was about it. I don't like awards or attention. I mean, I do this because it's a mission. I don't like tyranny. I don't like bullies running my life. I'd rather go fishing and hang out with my kids and, play tennis or whatever, or oil paint with them. And as I've gotten a little more power and a little more influence and learned more, I get more and more humble and more freaked out by, you know, tenuous, transitory human power. But then I study these elites, and on average, they love award ceremonies. They love primping and posing. The more power they get, they relish the crowds. They relish the applause. When I walk out to 2,000 people and people are crying and clapping, it's like embarrassing, because I realize I'm just human, and I'm going, my God, I better do a good job. These people are looking up to me. That seems like a normal, you know, I guess in the hierarchy of needs perspective. Now all I want is a future for my children, and for them to have a future with other people. I you know, have gone to that pure mode of seeing how short life is, understanding that we're all part of a larger community. And then I see the worldliness of the merger of Hollywood and politics, and these people relishing it. And you know, you're calling it narcissism, but it seems to go beyond that. And I don't mean to talk about myself, but just analyzing my position, that as you get more power, you tend to become more humble. But then I look at most people in power, they become more arrogant, more wild, more reckless with hubris. But I realize as you get more power, that like Spider-Man says, with great power comes great responsibility. Now I'm still, you know, decisive from research. I know you have to be decisive, but that comes from research and already having preset, you know, decisions I've made. But still, it makes you nervous, because if you make a mistake, it has a bigger effect. But these guys, they just think power is the prima facie authorization to do whatever they want. I mean, do you get where I'm going?
Yes, the difference between you, my friend, and myself and them, I was promoted to Brigadier General status 07. I turned it down. I was asked to go on the medal. I turned all of that down just like you did. I was not interested. The difference between you, who's somebody who's very grounded, understands what it is, despite what the press will say, you're a conspirator and all of that, that's nonsense. The difference between you and the understanding of where you came from and you're wanting to learn, and the politician who wants to self-aggrandize, is the difference between an American who's stable and a narcissist, a politician who has to self-aggrandize and has nothing that he or she has accomplished. So when you look at these politicians, you're really looking at movie stars. The problem I had on television, or creating television shows or even novels, is that the movie star is the least important person. They're the ones who are saying your words, i.e. the writer's words, and the creator or the executive producer, where they think they're really the center of attraction. Well, the problem with narcissists, and it's malignant narcissism, is that these politicians genuinely believe after a while that they are important. In fact, if you take them away from their telephone and their position, they are of no relevance. So what happens? They become so-called lobbyists, and then they get money for nothing more than being egregious and pandering to the next level. And this is what's happening. We went from a product-oriented country to a very sensible country of real people producing real products, to a country of process producing nothing more than process and paper pushing, and individuals who are intercessors for intercessors with nothing more for their sense of self-worth than the fact that they were deputy to the deputy to the deputy of the deputy. And this is out of control, and this is what's happened. That's why the only institution that I can respect within the American hierarchical system is really the military. Why? Because it's very tough to be on the ground and fighting and having a sense of discipline and self-discipline and being shot at and caring about whether you are a captain or a major. You really have to go through the system, and you really have to be accountable for life and death. That's why you and I have respect for physicians. We have respect for those who create, whether it's a person who drives a truck, his responsibility is to make sure that he can deliver the goods, or whether it's a mechanic or whether it's anybody, it doesn't matter what it is. There is no one in your audience who's going to advance him or herself on the basis of saying how important they think they should be. The only ones who do that are really, by definition, sociopaths, because they have no sense of guilt, they have no sense of consequence, so they can say anything they want. The president is a typical example of that, be it this president, a Democrat, or a Republican like Bush Jr., who had no sense of consequences, had never performed successfully in any of these feats. And then you have Clinton, who clearly was filleted in the White House. How much sociopath can you have there? Then you have his wife, who can tell you the broadest lies in the world and then still tell you how important she feels she is and writes a book that she never even wrote. So we have created a culture of sociopathy, which is more dangerous just narcissism. And that's what makes the difference between the Alex Jones show and the audience and the American government that so-called represents us. They don't represent us. It's not real anymore. They're in the Wizard of Oz, the Wizard of Sociopathy. They are now really sociopaths who are doing nothing more than self-aggrandizing and extending their own narcissism.
Well, when you talk about process, it's as if the paper-pushing BS factories are waging war against the farms, the ranches, the industry. I mean, they state they are, and so the false reality can't exist with those of us in reality, and so that's the problem. They won't leave us alone. I mean, they can play dress.
Of a revolution, my friend. That's where we began to have a revolution. I don't think anybody understands the history very well. The American public, contrary to any other world government, we did not tolerate King George. We did not tolerate in the French Revolution Louis XVI. What we have now is a variation of Louis XVI. Feed them cake. We'll take over and take care of you. No, you can't. You don't even know how to take care of yourselves. We have the farmers. We have the ranchers. We have the mechanics, the truck drivers, the doctors. Do you know what the designation of an MD is now? My daughter was designated an MD is a home health provider. Or a health provider. Do you believe that after 10 years of education?
Yeah, the bureaucrats are taking titles away from people that really deserve the position and the responsibility. Again, the scum is waging war against reality. Final call. Correct. Dave in Long Island, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hey, Alex. Hi, Dr. Pieczenik. Can I ask you guys a question, and the fellas out there in radio land?
Yeah, we only got a minute and a half. Go ahead.
If a private person or a private mercenary group or another government claimed that they killed Osama bin Laden and they gave the same story, they threw the body overboard, the phony picture, the story isn't straight. If a private person came back to the United States and said, oh, yeah, I just killed Osama bin Laden, would we buy that?
No.
Would anybody buy that?
Prison, by the way. We would immediately arrest.
That's a great point. That's a great point, Doctor.
If an individual commits a foreign policy act, we put him in prison. There's some law to that effect.
My point is if we're not going to buy it from any scenario like that, why should we buy it from the government?
You should.
Why should we?
That's why we're saying it. That's why you got to tell your congressmen in Long Island, all those people there who represent you, get out and start telling the truth.
Well, there's no doubt the White House is definitely on top of this. So is all their dinosaur media people stumbling along on their last leg. And Dave, great point. Great tail gunner caller to end the broadcast that way. Dr. Pieczenik, StevePieczenik.com. Look forward to having you up again in the near future. You've been very gracious. And I'll say bye to you here at the break. But thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, and thank your audience. It's been wonderful. It's really an honor to be on.
It's been an honor to be on with you. Folks, you can agree with him, disagree with him, but the point is he's had a lot of courage and made a lot of good points, and is also independently, separately from our analysis, pointed out, these people are at war against everything decent, everything wholesome, because they're hollow scum, and they think it will expand their power if real people don't exist, when they wouldn't exist if it wasn't for us. Things are way out of balance. Retransmission with key intel straight ahead. Info.
I'm Mark Craighead.